Hello everyone and welcome to Clarity 16.1.1 Supportability and Feature Training. I am Vib Mehrotra, and as part of this training we will be talking about the board view enhancements. As part of this version of Clarity, we are releasing the new board view throughout the Clarity application. The board view that was available under the task workspace as beta is now going to be GA. We will have the ability to configure the card layout within the board view, and viewing of the data will now be available using columns and swim lanes. And finally, there will be a new navigational experience when interacting with the board views. The reason this is important is that in the previous version of Clarity, we released the new board view within the task workspace as beta. As part of this release, we are making that functionality as GA, and based on customer feedback where they wanted to see the new board view across the application as it empowered them to view and manage the information better, we are now making the same board view available everywhere in Clarity where board views were available. The new board view is going to be available everywhere within Clarity where there were board views in the past. The task workspace will no longer be beta, it is now going to be GA. And the new board view will integrate with our common components, which is the filter, flyout, search, widgets, and saved views itself. Here is a screenshot comparing how the board views used to look like in 16.1.0 and below, and the new layout starting 16.1.1 and higher. The board views will support the column and swim lanes. So in this screenshot, you can see that I have selected the different columns that are going to be displayed. The columns can be collapsed or expanded, and I can see the new swim lane option where I can see the data based on my swim lanes. So I have columns and swim lanes. The card itself will now display up to 2 titles, 6 data fields, and 6 metrics fields. Let's looking at a little bit more detail for the card layout itself. The card will now have an icon displaying the object type. If a title is the name of that specific object instance, then that will be a hyperlink which clicking on will take the user to the specific object instance itself. If a title has a text added to it, then we will display the entire text in that card itself. The color for the card will be based on the color attribute as defined in the view options. The fields that will be displayed will have the background and text color based on the attribute display mapping. If a resource attribute is used, then we will display the resource avatar, and hovering over it will display the full name of that specific resource. The metrics will display the color based on the attribute display color mapping. And if no display mapping is defined for the attribute, then we will use the card color to display the attribute data. Going into the view option for the board view, if the board view supports the time period, then we will display the time period setting as it does today. The column definition for the attribute will be defined right after that, which should be based on the columns. The swim lane is a new option that is going to be available that will allow the user to define what attribute should be used to display the data swim lane. The ability to sort the data within the board layout will be done based on the sort attribute right here, and the color attribute will be used to display the color for each card within the board view. We also have the option right here to show the label. So depending on how much data the user puts in their card, they have the option to show or hide the label. Specifically, these are the labels right here, as in this example I have the finish date, the manager, the project type. These are the specific labels which I can show or hide in my card. Right below that is the ability to configure the card layout, which we will cover later, and then it's the managing of the pick list itself. If the user goes into the view option for a board view where time period is not available, then they will just see the column, swim lane, and sorting color options for their view option for their board view. Configuring a card is straightforward, where the user, when clicking on the configure card link within the view option, will see the layout configurator. The user can see all the list of available attributes on the left, and on the right they can see the card layout. The user can easily filter for attribute and then drag and drop the specific attribute to any one of the area in the card, such as the title, the fields, or the metrics. The user can drag and drop into the open field areas only, or open title, field, and metrics area only. If the user wants to remove a specific attribute from the card, they can easily click on the X button. As mentioned, the card can hold up to 2 titles, 6 fields, and 6 metrics. The layout will display a blank field or a blank area where the attribute can be dragged and dropped. The attribute layout can only be changed by removing the attribute from its specific area and then re-adding them to the required area. The metrics data will be displayed in an abbreviated format. The card also supports context menu, which is the right click on a specific card. Doing so will open the context menu, and the user will see the option to either open the card details, which is opening of the flyout. The user will have the option to move the card between columns or move the card between swim lanes. Hovering over the moving of the card to another column will display all the available columns, and there is a maximum of 10 columns that will be displayed in here. Hovering over to the moving of the swim lane will display the available swim lanes that the card can be moved to. And if the board view that is being used for the specific object type supports deleting of the card, then the delete option will be available. The delete option is not available for projects, ideas, and CIT. There is an improved navigation within the card, which is by double clicking on a specific card will open up the detail flyout. The user can navigate to a specific card object instance by clicking on the name hyperlink, which will then open up the specific object instance displaying the first module for that object instance. The user can also multi-select the cards. They can either use the control key in Windows or Mac key in a Mac laptop, or the user can use the drag and drop capability of selecting multiple cards just by dragging across the cards. Once the multiple cards are selected, then the user has the option to drag and drop those cards between columns or swim lanes. The board layout will always display a none column and a none swim lane. This is done so to give the user the capability to move any card to either a none value for the column or a none value in the swim lane. The user can also collapse any swim lane or any column by clicking on either the swim lane header or clicking on the arrow in the column itself. The user also has the option to filter for data within the board view, or use the column or swim lane attribute in the filter to reduce the number of columns and swim lane to be displayed. Depending on the view option for the board view, if the user only specifies the column attribute, then the data will be displayed in column, and each column will have its own scroll bar, allowing the user to scroll up and down within that column itself. There will be one horizontal scroll bar to view the data left and right. If the user specifies columns and swim lanes, then there will be a single scroll bar for vertical scrolling from top to bottom and one horizontal scroll bar going left to right. As the user scrolls top to bottom or left to right, the data will be retrieved automatically. With that, let's see the product in action. So here I am in Clarity 16.1.1 and I'm going to navigate to my project layout and I'm going to go straight to the project board view. Landing onto my board view, you can right away see the new board layout where now I have cards with a lot of information that is being displayed. They're nicely color coded and easily consumable format for me to make my necessary decisions. I can see my column layout is now in the new way of rather than the previous way. I can easily collapse any one of these columns as I choose to do so to see additional information, or I can expand them. I have the none column that will always be there. Right below it I can see my swim lanes and I can just collapse these to see the additional swim lanes. And I can or just use the scroll bar as I want to go up and down. Right? Or I can expand as I want. So all of the data is available to me. I can go into the view option to see how this is configured. So in the view I can see that right below the time period my columns are arranged based on my strategic theme attribute. The swim lane is defined based on my pick list, which is my working list. So I've defined a pick list that easily allows me to manage my projects, and I move them between the pick list to easily know what needs more attention than others. And the cards within the columns are sorted based on the business alignment. The color for each one of the card is based on my project type. I could use it based on status or any other field. The show label is the parameter that I can use to hide these labels right here. That is the label for the card itself. So let's go ahead and hide it, and you can see now that the labels for each field metrics has been removed, or I can add it back. I can go into the configure card to see all the different data. On the left side I have all the attributes that are available to me, and on the right side is the card layout itself. You can see that there are 2 titles, 6 fields and 6 metrics. I have used up all of the metrics as well as the fields, and I have 1 open slot left for a title itself. Alright, let's close this. I can do a quick search to find any specific card that I'm looking for. So by just typing right there, I can easily search, and I can see that my Global X project is under the Gate Review Coming Up swim lane and under the Business to Banking Engagement column. So I can easily find any one of my using the quick search, or I can combine this with my advanced filter, which is just by going into my filter section. And right here I can say show me only the strategic themes. Again, remember I'm using the column as the strategic theme, so maybe I only want to look at the accelerated growth and the business to bank. By doing so, I will only see the columns for those 2 and the none. So I can easily now reduce the number of columns. Maybe at this point I only want to focus on these 2 to take actions and work on it accordingly. Let's go inside, or before I do that, let's double click on a specific card, and by doing so I see that the card detail flyout has opened up, and I can see all the detail information for my specific card itself. I can close that and I can click on the name of the specific card, which is the name of my project. And by doing so, it'll open up the project and take me to the first tab or the first module that is configured in my card itself. In this example, I have my dashboard configured with my table as well as my chart widgets. The chart widgets are new in this release. But let's go into task where I can see the board view for my task itself. So here now I can see the new board view for my task, and again the data is arranged based on columns and swim lanes that I can easily click on any one of these and review it. I can again double click on any one of my card, which then again opens a detailed flyout, and I can look at the to-dos and interact and update the information related to my task itself. But I realize that the information for the card is not too much and I want to configure it. So let's go ahead and now configure my card layout. So for that, I'm going to go into the view option. I'm going to go into the configure card. And here in this case, you can see not many fields have been added to my card itself. I have the name of my task as the top one, the investment name as the second title, and then I have few fields configured below it and no metrics configured. So let's add something. I want to add my assigned resources as a field right here. I want to configure the owner so that I know who is the owner of the task in case if I need to reach out to them, and I want to quickly also see if a specific task is late or not. So I'm going to add those. So now I have all of that data available. But I also want to see some metrics. I want to see what is the percentage complete for a specific task. Maybe I want to also see any actuals that are reported against it. Again, hopefully you're noticing that as I'm dragging and dropping a specific attribute to the card layout, when I drop it to an empty spot, the next spot, if available, automatically becomes opened up. So in this case, I have this metrics as an open spot, and let's add a metrics right there. So the minute I drag this metrics to this open spot, the next open slot will open up. So there I've dragged and dropped it. Once that is filled, the next slot where I can add the next attribute opens up. If I have consumed all the open slot as I did for the title and for fields, there are no open slots left over there. So you can see that there are no open slots displayed there, but metrics still has 3 more open slots which will be available as I keep dragging one after the other. All right, I feel that I think I have enough information in my card. Let's go ahead and apply this. And let's look at now my card with a lot more information there that I can easily see the actuals, ETCs, and percentage complete for my different cards. Looking at the data, I feel that there are certain information such as Paula has this as none for my between the phases. So maybe I want to adjust some of this data from right here. Let's move this to another column, and the moving is as simple as just selecting, dragging, and dropping. Maybe I want to move multiple cards, and I can do so by, again, as I mentioned, in the Windows I can use the Control key, or in Mac using the Mac key I can multi-select, which I just did for these two, and I can now drag and drop them across. So now I have multi-selected and moved those. Let's move this one back here. I can also drag and drop, which is holding the left mouse key and then dragging to multi-select. So I just multi-selected both of these and I can move them to unapproved. So I have that capability of dragging and dropping and moving those. Next, let's go and look at my task workspace. Coming into my task workspace, of course, I have the widgets. I have now the new board layout. And in this case, I've filtered to only see my start task. I can see, and I've configured for the tasks that I've either started, not started. I don't want to see none, so I can hide that. And maybe I can say that a couple of these have been completed. I can use the same method of selecting these together using the control key. I can select them using the drag. I can or drag each one of them individually, as we just saw those demos, but maybe I want to use the right mouse key. So this is the context menu. Doing a right mouse key will give me the option to do open details, which I can click on that, and I can see the details for that specific task. The same thing could have been done by double clicking on it, or I can move this to any other column. So maybe I want to use this to say that this specific task is complete, and I can just click on that and the task gets moved from started to complete. Notice that the move to swim lane does not have any option because I'm only filtering my data or viewing my board view based on columns. There are no swim lanes defined. And I have now the scroll bars for the individual columns, so I can easily scroll up and down for that respective individual column. Alright, let's next go to my roadmaps, and I can go within the roadmap and look at the new board view that is now available in the roadmap. I'm going to go into my digital banking product line, and going into my roadmap items, the board view layout, you can see the targets defined on top and then the board views at the bottom with all the card displayed right there. And again, at the quick display, you can see the new card layout that is available, the targets that are there, and the display option for each one of those. In this example, because I have swim lanes defined, I can see that now the move to swim lane is available, and because I filtered to only see these two swim lanes, I can easily move a card to a different swim lane, and there it's been moved down below, and the navigation takes me to that to show it to me that the card is moved to the new swim lane right here, which is the investment services. Again, as usual, the information that is being displayed is maybe not enough, so I can configure these the same way as I did for the task by going into the view option, and then within the view option I can go into configure card, and here you can see that I'm only leveraging the roadmap item. Maybe I want to see the link to, which will tell me which specific object instance is this roadmap item linked to. I can add additional information such as the stage, add that to my fields. Again, notice as I drag and drop, the next available field will get displayed, and once I use up all of those, then it'll go away. So let's have one more data type in there, which is type. So I'm going to drag it into the last field section, and now there's no more field available that I can add in here, but I still have 6 metrics that are available. So let's add a few more, which is I want to see the capital cost, I want to see the operating cost, and maybe I want to see the benefit. Alright, so again, I'm only going to have 3 metrics at this point. Applying and saving in here, I can close my view. I now see the different data based on the different information, and there is my link. So only this specific roadmap item has the related to populated, so I can see that that is there. I can click on that specific link, which will then open up the project or investment for me. So it easily takes me to that respective project, and I can see it. And that concludes our board view enhancements. Thank you, everyone.